Good day to all and greetings. My name is Molly Horan, Senior Communications Associate for the Parliament of the World's Religions and the Coordinator of Faiths Against Hate. Today I am proud to advance the mission of this campaign to transform the elements of fear, anger, and hate in our culture into neighborly, loving relationships. Welcome to the Tectonic Leadership webinar. We will learn today how it is possible to use tension to transform conflict and develop partnerships from across the most radical of divides.
I would like to introduce you to the co-founders of the Tectonic Leadership Center for Conflict Transformation and Cross-Cultural Communication, Brenda Naomi Rosenberg and Samia Mustafa Bahsoun, our speakers for today, coming to you together from Detroit. Brenda is a former fashion executive, globe-trotting photographer, and full-time peacemaker, a Jewish Zionist who is an active member of AIPAC, the American Israel Political Action Committee, and a vice president of the American Jewish Committee in Detroit, Michigan. Brenda is the recipient of 16 local, national, and international awards for her interfaith effort. Samia is a telecom executive, international business entrepreneur, and secular Muslim pro-Palestine activist and community organizer. Samia is the executive liaison for the Americas of the South Asia, Middle East, and North Africa Telecommunication Council. She is a judge and coach for the MIT Arab Entrepreneur Competition and serves on the steering committee of the New Jersey Main Street Alliance. These are two women from radically different professions, backgrounds, cultures, ideologies, and beliefs who share the frustration of unresolved conflict between their opposing communities despite the huge number of interfaith dialogue groups. Brenda and Samia are also co-authoring a book called Tension: How an Arab and Jewish Zionist Use Tension to Transform Conflict.
Good morning from Detroit. I first would like to thank Molly Horan and the Parliament of the World's Religion for this opportunity to be with you today, and thank you especially for attending this webinar. After Molly's introduction, some of you must be wondering how in the world did a pro-Palestinian Arab of Lebanese Muslim descent, a techie, whose wardrobe is limited to 3 business suits, 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts and sweats, and an American Jewish Zionist, globe-trotting fashionista, whose closet is actually bigger than my living room, how did those 2 women meet and pair together to transform conflict? I will let Brenda tell you how we met, because she's a much more dramatic storyteller than I am. However, before I do that, I need to tell you where I was before I met Brenda 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I was totally disillusioned about any possibility of conflict resolution in the region, let alone finding a partner on the other side. I was in fact very angry. I was angry at Israel for killing my grandmother and grand-aunt, who were burned to death during Israeli air raids on southern Lebanon in 1982. I was angry at my Jewish neighbors and friends for standing with Israel when they raided Lebanon again in 2006. If I were invited to speak to you 4 years ago, I would have given you our reasons for kidnapping 4 Israeli soldiers in 2006, and we tell you that Israel used it as an excuse to bomb Lebanon, and they had planned it all along. I would have defended myself and my community and argued for us and for the 100 Lebanese who have been fighting Israeli occupation of southern Lebanon. And ask my husband. I'm pretty good at arguing. I started arguing and advocating against Israel and for the Palestinians at the age of 14. I remember during my last year in high school destroying grapefruits produced in Israel at the school cafeteria counter so no one could consume them. In college, I rallied and organized against Israel. I found myself often on the front row of a demonstration against Israel and Zionism. However, there was a small period of time when I found the will to meet the other side and actually had some hope. This was when I joined AT&T Bell Labs in New Jersey in 1985. I began to work with research scientists from Israel and agreed to participate in a dialogue group organized by the Foundation for Middle East Communication at the invitation of a Canadian colleague of mine. Meeting the other did help temper my anger, but the mounting tension in the region, especially the war in 2006, pretty much took me right back to where I was in my teens. I honestly had little hope then that our people could ever come to an agreement, let alone coexistence. This was until 2009, when I received a phone call from a certain Brenda Rosenberg. A phone call that will change forever the way I look at conflict, at this conflict and others. A phone call that altered my relationship with the other. A phone call that altered my relationship with tension. I will now hand over the microphone to my most unlikely partner and friend, Brenda Rosenberg, who will begin to tell you our story.
Thank you, Samia. It's so nice having you here in Detroit. As the former Vice President of Fashion Merchandising and Marketing for Federated Allied Department Stores, I've traveled the world and rubbed shoulders with the rich and famous. I dined in Monaco with Prince Rainier, in Milan with Gianni Versace, partied at Regine's in Paris with Bernard Lanvin. I led a dream life for a girl who loves to shop and party. But it was the horrific events of 9/11 that changed my life. As the towers fell and the death toll mounted, I thought, what if I could take my creativity and marketing skills and use them to help heal the pains of the old prejudices and the new ones that would come, and all the misconceptions between cultures and religions. So it was that day of September 11, 2001, that I started building partnerships. I knew that in Metro Detroit, the most segregated city in America, there was going to be a need for a deeper level of understanding. With Christian, Jewish, and Muslim partners, we created Reuniting the Children of Abraham, a toolkit for peace. In over 124 presentations, we brought together individuals and communities that never would have met. We felt we were making a difference. And then came the 2009 war between Israel and Gaza. The death and destruction created a polarizing rift no ordinary dialogue could bridge. I called my friend and teacher, Debbie Ford. I asked, Debbie, do you know an Arab coach I could partner with? And Debbie replied, call Samia Mustafa Bahsoun. I sent Samia an email, and we set a time to talk. But just after saying, hi, I'm Brenda, and Samia replied, hi, I'm Samia, Samia shocked me with, so why can't you Jews give up the Holocaust story and move on? This is where most conversations between Jews and Arabs would have ended. But I took a very deep breath in, tried to sound calm, but I'm sure Samia could hear the anxiety I was feeling when I asked her, Samia, why would you ask me to give up the Holocaust? She quickly replied, because of the pain it's caused and continues to cause the Palestinians and Arabs for a crime they did not commit. In that moment, I saw how critical it was to have this conversation as a Jew and an Arab. And I said to Samia, we need to talk about all the damage of the Holocaust. The death of 6 million Jews and millions of others at the hands of Nazis, the million Arabs who became refugees, the million Jews who became refugees from Arab countries. And she quickly replied, so how can we use the Holocaust to heal humanity and prevent future genocides instead of the Holocaust using us? Well, Debbie was absolutely right. The phone call was the beginning of our very unlikely partnership.
So you heard the question. How can we use the Holocaust to heal humanity and prevent future genocides instead of having the Holocaust use us? How can we use the past instead of the past using us? How can we use our pain to end conflict instead of the pain using us to perpetuate conflict? How can we use tension to bridge our differences and connect our humanity instead of allowing tension to separate us and destroy us? This insight became the mantra of all our future interactions. How can we use tension to transform conflict? How can we use tension to deconstruct negative narratives? You know, when I asked Brenda, why don't the Jews give up the Holocaust story and move on? I was not aware about how Brenda would feel. It was in fact the exact opposite. When I asked that question, I sent Brenda a message, and maybe all the Jews, a message that I really didn't care about how she felt. My intention was not consciously malicious, but my attention was on one thing and only one: advocating for myself, advocating for my community, advocating for the Palestinians, advocating for the Lebanese that suffered under Israeli aggression. And it did take Brenda a real commitment to transform conflict, to even ask me the question, Samia, why would you ask me to give up the Holocaust story? It is because of her commitment. She gave me the space to inform her. She could have easily hung up the phone and walked away. I probably would have done the same. I probably would have never heard again from Brenda. And I would have gone back to exactly where I was at the age of 14. Only this time, with a greater certitude that there is no partner on the other side. You see, human interactions in conflict situations are like fault lines between tectonic plates. Plates interacting and building friction at their boundaries, causing earthquake to occur when the natural elasticity of the rocks has been exceeded. Compression that form mountains, tension that leads to volcanic eruption, and the creation of a new crust that creates permanent shield, just like the crust that surrounds our heart when we're angry. Human interaction can similarly create fault systems. When the pressure generated by tension becomes unbearable, the energy release is tsunami-like, creating mass hysteria, inciting hate and fear, separating nations, instigating wars, and destroying communities.
For Samia and I, that first conversation was our tectonic moment. We can't control natural disasters from happening, but we understood we had a choice. We could either stay silent, grow further apart, and deepen the gap, witness our people collide, or we could be an example of how fault lines can be transformed, boundaries re-examined and expanded, commitments renewed. The barriers separating Israelis and Palestinians, Jews and Arabs are not just physical. They are emotionally charged, complex, and fueled by current events. We saw we had a choice. We could use the events to demonize the other or shift our attention to finding new solutions together. As we tackle hot topics that separate our community, Zionism, the Holocaust, Gaza, the Lebanon War, Jerusalem, occupation, settlements, suicide bombing, the right of return, and the flotilla to Gaza, we use them to examine our realities and deepen our understanding of the other. We saw the importance, for instance, of connecting but never comparing the death of 70-year-old Holocaust victim Durocher, who died at Auschwitz, to the death of Samia's 70-year-old grandmother, Miriam Bahsoun, a victim of Israeli raids in Tyre. Through these connections, we expanded the Holocaust story to include both our narratives. From discussions of these real-life situations of conflict, we developed a tectonic leadership model to transform conflict and create cross-cultural communication. We'd like to share with you our 5-minute video of our process.
We can either learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or perish together as fools. Martin Luther King. Tectonic leadership is a vehicle for developing leaders from opposite sides of conflict to take joint ownership in transforming conflict, facing challenges together, finding solutions together. Tectonic leadership uses earth tectonics as a metaphor, recognizing that human interactions in situations of conflict are like fault lines between tectonic plates, building friction at their boundaries, exploding, causing earthquakes, tsunamis, wars, and mass hysteria. Tectonic leadership redirects the energy, realigns the boundaries, giving the rocks back their elasticity. Tectonic leadership provides the tools, the structure, the discipline, and commitment to engage the other, together accessing the full potential of our humanity. Tectonic leadership is based on 3 disciplines and commitments. Tectonic leaders collaborate with people from opposite sides of conflict, taking joint ownership in transforming conflict. Tectonic leaders commit to expand their boundaries, creating a shared, congruent identity without changing their core beliefs. Tectonic leaders know that tension is seldom eradicated and do not avoid tension. Tectonic leaders use the tension surrounding conflict as an opportunity to deepen their understanding and engage the other. Tectonic leaders do not focus on advocating, defending, and serving only one side. Tectonic leaders commit to a level of integrity that cares equally about self and other, facing challenges together, finding solutions together. Tectonic leaders lead consciously through the lens of evolution, not the lens of survival. While survival makes common sense, it holds on to the footprint of the past. The instinct to survive separates us from the other and ultimately destroys us. The evolutionary mindset goes beyond common sense. It connects us to the other, fueled by the willingness to walk a path where there are no footprints. Tectonic leadership was created by Brenda Naomi Rosenberg, American Jewish activist and global fashion executive, and Samia Mustafa Bahsoun, American Arab activist of Muslim descent and telecom executive, 2 women who refuse to be enemies, fearless in addressing issues others refuse to talk about. Samia and Brenda engaged in a journey of unlikely partners, becoming relentless in their search for a course of action that would make a difference. Their commitment to collaborate and co-create a shared vision, despite their polarized beliefs, became an obsession. Brenda and Samia, no longer enemies, are now the living symbol of tectonic leadership. Leaders shattering barriers, experiencing seismic shifts, creating a tipping point for peace. Leaders who have expanded their boundaries without changing their core beliefs. Leaders with a shared congruent identity. Samia Mustafa Bahsoun, an American Arab Muslim woman, pro-Palestinian tectonic leader, and Brenda Naomi Rosenberg, an American Jewish Zionist woman, tectonic leader. The Tectonic Leadership Center for Conflict Transformation and Cross-Cultural Communication develops and trains existing and potential leaders under a leadership platform governed by the 3 disciplines and commitments of tectonic leadership. The Tectonic Leadership Center will act as a clearinghouse, setting new communication standards, a place where tension becomes an opportunity to better understand the other, a place where explosive events will be reported and analyzed by pairs from opposite sides of conflict, committed to transform conflict. The Tectonic Leadership Center, a venue for inspiring and creating solutions. The Tectonic Leadership Center targets key aspects of society, influencing locally and globally, personally and collectively. Universities and educational institutions, interfaith organizations, peace and dialogue groups, businesses, government, and media. We are at a critical moment in history. We can choose to self-destruct or create a new discourse and be in the presence of the best of our humanity.
I am committed to Tectonic Leadership.
I am a Tectonic leader, and I'm committed to true change because I'm committed in engaging the other.
I am committed to Tectonic Leadership and its approach to conflict transformation and cross-cultural communication.
I'm committed to Tectonic Leadership and to working with my peers to create a just world.
I'm a Tectonic leader, and in the end, it doesn't matter what religion you are, it matters people are people, blood is blood.
I am a Tectonic leader. I am committed to my Tectonic brothers and sisters.
I'm committed to implementing Tectonic leadership into all aspects of my life.
And I am a Tectonic leader, and I am committed to Tectonic leadership and serving my community and holding interfaith events on my campus.
I'm a Tectonic leader, and I'm committed to the ways of tectonics, to engage others.
I'm committed to making a difference using tectonic leadership and using tension as an opportunity to resolve conflict.
I'm a Tectonic leader, and I'm committed to the future. Coming into this week, I was hesitant and a little ashamed to call myself a Zionist as a Jew. But afterwards, I've built some connections and developed my own identity and my personality, and I feel strong and feel more than comfortable calling myself a pro-Palestinian Zionist. And I don't think that those two are contradictory, and this has been a fantastic week.
During the retreat, the Tectonic Leadership Program, I learned to collaborate with differing opinions, which are sometimes conflicting opinions, without changing my own core beliefs. And doing so by focusing on the issues surrounding the conflict instead of demonizing or blaming the other person. I think the key here is really being committed to equally care about myself and my views as well as the other, understanding the roots of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, and work towards finding solutions. Having gone through this program and the late-night, never-ending conversations we had during the retreat, I feel comfortable saying that I'm a pro-Israeli and a pro-Palestinian Muslim.
After some wonderful conversations with Molly, she asked us, could we put together some tectonic tips for intergenerational tension? And we thought, what a great idea, because some of the most challenging tensions are intergenerational. Some of the young think us older folks got it all wrong, and well, sometimes we did. And some seniors think that the younger generation has not experienced enough to really have formed an opinion. So we created 5 tectonic tips for seniors to help with intergenerational tension. Slide number 1. Put understanding young leaders first, being heard second. We do have a tendency to want to advocate and make sure our young leaders hear our point of view. In that situation, not only do we alienate them, but we also fail to hear them. By committing to understanding our young leaders first and being heard second, we have the ability and opportunity to connect, understand what they want, establish trust, and then, in turn, be heard.
Tectonic tip number 2 is honor and respect the beliefs and views of young leaders, especially when they're different from yours. By the way, that also applies for young leaders to honor the beliefs of the seniors. Acknowledge their truth, and then say, my perspective is different, and ask, may I share mine?
Develop a new tectonic relationship with tension. Utilize tension to inform yourself on the issues that surround conflict. Use tension as an opportunity to deepen your understanding of young leaders' issues and concerns and engage them. See tension as an opportunity and not as an obstacle to communication and developing partnerships.
The bad news is that tension will never be eradicated. The good news is that you could use the tension. Tension will never be eradicated. There will always be tension and conflict. In most situations, when people are in tension, they tend to either avoid the situation of conflict or fight it. In both cases, they tend to separate from the other, and deepen the conflict. We invite you instead to focus on the issues surrounding conflict instead of demonizing, blaming, and judging others. When tension is used so that it informs us of the pain and the needs of others, it provides a space for people in conflict to connect at a deeper level, to collaborate, and to find solutions together.
Tectonic Tip 5, partner with a young leader. Tectonic partners hold each other accountable to stay committed to the relationship, especially during times of crisis. Tectonic partners willingly stand with each other and engage each other's communities together.
What Brenda was saying really is that your partner becomes your anchor, especially during time of conflict. And this is really important when you go back with your partner into your respective communities. And the picture you see here is the future. It is you, the young leaders. You're the future for conflict transformation. And the picture you see here is our first group of young tectonic leaders, the same one that you've seen in the video. And I would like to invite you to imagine how our world would change if people from opposite sides of conflicts created partnership across divides, Jews and Arabs, Shiite and Sunni Muslims, Hutu and Tutsis, right here at home, Republicans and Democrats. Imagine them paired to create viable and sustainable partnership in all sectors of society, in business, for profit or non-profit, in government, in policy making, public service, in the arts. Partnerships that benefit both communities who are both in conflict.
Thank you guys, Brenda, Samia, so much for your presentation. I'm so interested to continue the conversation about tectonic leadership. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a couple of questions, and then we're going to open up to the audience. I'm going to go first to show your contact information, because I really want to encourage our participants today to be able to follow up with you to perhaps pursue the opportunity of holding a tectonic leadership seminar in their own community, or to be able to speak with you directly. I'm going through the tips right now. I see your website information. So I'm going to start by asking Brenda, if you can tell me what some of the outcomes are, besides what we saw in the video, when you've been holding these leadership seminars.
Thank you, Molly. I think one of the most dramatic turnaround is Rashid Beydoun. Rashid started boycotts, divestments, and sanctions against the State of Israel at the University of Michigan Dearborn campus. After participating in the 5-day and 5-night Tectonic Leadership program, Rashid saw that partnering with young Jewish leaders on campus would be much more helpful to the Palestinian cause and help in creating a two-state solution rather than advocating for boycotts, divestments, and sanctions against the State of Israel. Today, Rashid Beydoun refers to the head of the ADL as Mishpacha. This week, we are very thrilled that Adriana Siegel wrote an article on her experience with Jewish-Muslim dialogue. She just came back from Sarajevo. Last year with the American Jewish Committee, she was in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And her article on how she is working on Jewish-Muslim relations will be on Thursday in both the Muslim Observer and the Detroit Jewish News.
Wow.
Shachar and Laura, two of our young Muslim and Jewish leaders, also spearheaded a writing campaign and have been, and their article was published in the Muslim Observer. These are just a few of the wonderful outcomes that our young leaders have experienced, and to this day they are keeping in touch and are friends.
Well, it's so exciting to see that the work that they're doing with you is creating a presence in both sides of the media and the spectrum of what's widely read by the Jewish community, what's widely read by the Arab community. And it just makes me wonder, you know, Samia, what are your dreams for Tectonic Leadership? How big, how transformative do you imagine that this model could be for those who want to advocate for peace?
Brenda and I often say that war is so much more funded than peace, and so much more advertised than peace. Well, really our dream for Tectonic Leadership is to create a collaboration between the Tectonic Leadership Center and universities and educational institutions globally. Our plan is to create a hybrid academic program that combines a university classic academic track, really targets the youth, that is, you know, the upcoming youth, and other curricular activity with the Tectonic Leadership Toolkit for Conflict Transformation. Often these are separated on campus, and we'd like to bring them together into one platform. One of my big dreams, and I was inspired by the work I've been doing with MIT, is to create the Tectonic Leadership Enterprise Forum. In the MIT Arab Entrepreneur Competition, what we do is we have people from Arab countries compete together. What I'd like to see happen is a tectonic form of that competition. Basically have young people on opposite side of conflict come together to compete in an entrepreneurial forum and be funded to actually start their businesses together. In reality, our vision is to build a new relational architecture in areas of conflict based on economic interdependency through entrepreneurial cross-pollination. We really believe when people do business together and collaborate together, that relationship becomes a lot more sustainable, and they will have together a presence in their own respective community and break down barriers together.
That actually reminds me, Brenda, you talked to me a little bit at the beginning, being based in Detroit. Many of us are familiar that there is a very large Arab population in Detroit, obviously a very large African American, Black American, and immigrant population in Detroit. And you were telling me a little bit about the problems that have been manifesting in the city because of the economic situation across those communities. Do you want to tell me a little bit more about that?
We face every challenge one could possibly imagine here by having the largest Arab population outside of the Middle East, a small but very vibrant Jewish community. The city of Detroit is 90% African American, and you see the divides happening every which way. But we do have a very strong core group of individuals who are willing to cross those divides with our Interfaith Leadership Council. And this year, the American Jewish Committee was given a grant to work specifically on Jewish-Muslim issues. And so we're very excited about the progress that we're making in that area.
That is excellent to hear. I guess what I mean to draw attention to as well is just that these divides are not exclusively just religious divides or political divides, that even by working there, extending your leadership model into the community and working more carefully there, that it can really cater itself to the particular problems that are being faced, especially in terms of economic disparity and such, and competition for resources. So I'm very, very encouraged, and I want to encourage our participants now to begin sharing your questions. I know we have one particular guest participant who was integral to bringing me together with you, Brenda and Samia. That's one of our summer interns, Sarah Durocher.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
I want to welcome Sarah. Sarah, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Wow, how are you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Thank you.
I think we're doing well. How are you finding the presentation? What kind of questions do you have?
This is really amazing. I'm so impressed and so excited about this. I can't wait to try to bring this program to Augustana, where I'm currently at. I guess that leads into my first question. Before partnerships are formed and before you begin doing all of this tectonic work, what are some steps that can be taken to creating that space or opening a setting for this kind of partnership?
First, you need to find a partner. So you need to really go through a discovery process and identify the conflict. You need to define it. So are you working with, is the conflict the Palestinian-Israeli conflict? Is it Shiite and Muslims that you're seeing today? Is it a conflict between Republicans and Democrats? Once you identify the conflict, people on opposite sides of conflicts somehow need to find each other. So the idea of they need to first commit to one another. You need to have a real commitment that you want to transform conflict. When Brenda called me, my commitment was not there yet. But when she opened up the space for me to inform her, and when she then informed me, we developed that first relationship. And it wasn't easy. The first conversations were really difficult. But we really committed to each other. We committed to the partnership. You want to add something to it, Brenda?
Well, I think the question I get asked most often is there really a partner on the other side? And I think we have to create the partners. Are there people willing? Yes. But in Tectonic Leadership, our program is not for everyone. We ask people to sign papers that they are willing to commit to a long-term process. So often people come together and they're there just to hammer their side and their point of view. But there are many people who do want to find that partner, and what we like to do is create that safe space where people who really want to see change happen have that opportunity to come together. So signing the paper that you are willing on, signing on the dotted line that you are willing to commit is as important a part of the process as going through a workshop.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to read another question that's been submitted from Paul Denouy. Paul says, thank you for a great introduction to Tectonic Leadership. He goes on to say he's a little bit suspicious that those who participate in these kind of dialogues are the young or those who are already, quote, converts. He says extremists on both sides are actually the most difficult to bring to the table. Not only does war get more funding, but it sells news. What are the initial stages that need to happen before we can bring key leaders together, i.e. those who are actually empowering decision-making movements?
It's interesting. We get that question often. Okay, you guys, first of all, to be very clear, when we were putting that workshop together, the student that you saw on the video, many of them were, the university had warned us, oh, you don't want those guys in because they're going to be so disruptive. And we always are thinking that no, it's not us, it's really those politicians. But we elect those politicians, and they have the same concern. They're concerned about their own constituents. So, like Brenda said earlier, this is not for everybody. However, at the leadership level, I think what people have not done in the past, and what this concept, I hope I'm not being too forceful and arrogant about it, but the process really is about how do you use it to take tension, to understand that tension is always going to be there. Brenda and I, on a daily basis, and I'm seriously not kidding, on a daily basis, we have arguments. Every time there is a political event, we come from the other side of the spectrum. Because the whole process doesn't require that you change your core belief, but it requires that you understand that there is tension, that it will not go away, and to let tension inform you. But only tension will only inform you if you're committed. Okay, just like in a marriage. You could, you know, I mean, for those of us who've been married for a long time, we know that arguments always go on. And it's basically when you're in an argument, is that what does the tension inform you? And political leaders could use a lot of that. What is the other side informing them of? And I think that was a question that was asked, right? Like, you know, people come together. And this is where we differ a little bit, you know, from dialogue groups, is we don't have a nicey-nicey gathering. We start from the get-go, we introduce tension in the room when we do this workshop, and we invite people to come out with their tension point. So it's not a very easy process, trust me.
Oh, thank you for...
Did I answer the question?
I think so. I think that you're so grounded in realism and acknowledging that from the go that that tension still exists, that, you know, the idea is that from however extreme sides you're coming from, the tension is the tension, and that's what you have to work from. We do have another question that does kind of pertain to the same subject. This is from Thomas Debris. He says, what do you advise as a first step in tectonic leadership to bring parties into dialogue when a primary aspect of the tension is located in competing efforts to persuade the public of a view? Examples he shares are environmentalists fighting against the Keystone Pipeline versus carbon-based energy producers, or Republicans and Democrats as partisans.
Okay, I take this one again. Thank you, Thomas. That's an excellent question. So they take the environmentalists and the Keystone Pipeline. Those are tension points between those who want jobs created and those who want to protect the environment. So the immediate reaction is, for the environmentalists, is we're going to do whatever it takes and advocate how bad the pipeline is. Without addressing the point is, how do we create more jobs? So the way we do it, you take the tension point on one side. On one side, those who are for the Keystone Pipeline are saying we want to create jobs. So the idea is, so let's talk about creating jobs. Creating jobs is not only about building or not building the Keystone Pipeline. And so that allows you to get informed about the concern of others. Or, you know, jobs in our area are not very prevalent. So the key is those who are for it are preaching for more jobs, and they want to create more jobs. And the other side needs to listen to the aspect of it that is the tension is more jobs. The other side, if the other side is also tectonic, the one who want to really have, they said, oh, the environmentalists are always, you know, too crazy about stuff and so on. What I would invite them to do, if you're on the side of the Keystone Pipeline, is, okay, can you tell me more about how the Keystone Pipeline is going to impact the environment? So together, find a solution that is not, it's beyond just creating the Keystone Pipeline.
It's all about creating a new solution together. That's why our process is very evolutionary, because every problem out there, all the current set of solutions are dead. They don't even, especially around like the Middle East conflict, all solutions haven't worked. So it's about sitting down together and creating something brand new together.
And I want to say, you know, I want to tell everybody in the audience one thing is using tension to, you know, make tension your friend because it informs you is very paradoxical. And I'm an engineer by profession, and I like paradoxes. And paradoxes is para, it means beyond, doxa, common sense. So we're inviting all of you to go beyond common sense, because common sense is advocate for what you want, not really what you need. If you look at what in the Syrian conflict, what Putin and Obama had done, okay, the United States really wanted to go in. They wanted to send their missiles and bomb. And the Russians are saying, you're not getting another one of our Libyas. We'll let you have Libya. So that's a complicated situation as it is. But the key is, okay, you want to get rid of chemical weapons? Let's talk about that. So the conversation shifted. The tension point was chemical weapon. We use a tension point to create a new discourse and find new solutions.
Thank you, Samia. I just want to share with Brenda, Anya Cordell is with us, and she's saying hi.
Oh, hi, Anya.
Yes.
Anya does great work.
Yes, we've met Anya. Thank you so much, Anya, for being with us today. Be sure to get back in touch.
Thank you so much for being on the call.
Yes, and we do have another question coming in from Elise Nelson Winger. It talks about what people might have in common that they bring to the table. So Elise asks, what is the value of seeing common ground in trying to transform conflict? Can shared values also contribute to this process? Where does that happen in Tectonic Leadership workshops? She also thanks you for helping, encouraging everyone to use and not ignore tension in our interfaith relationships.
Usually Brenda speaks a lot more than I do, but today I think I'm on the speaking side of things. About shared values are very important. Actually extremely important, and they're nowhere to be neglected. So share values is what will cement. It's a bond that you will access. But my experience with having participated in dialogue groups, why they fell apart, is because we really only concentrated on shared values. But the shared values are enormous, and they will get amplified. When you let tension be on the table, it's like when you speak up your truth, and it's where you come from, is really the intent with which you're speaking your truth. That's why the partnering is so essential.
In our pilot program, what happened once we were able to look at the most contentious points of tension between them, once we had discussed that, then the desire to create something new together, all the common denominators of what they shared came into place. So the ones who had the ability to create artwork together came together on that. The others who saw the values of leadership. And so all the commonalities were amplified, but only after they saw that they needed to address the tension.
Oh, thank you, Brenda and Samia. I have a couple more comments that I will spin into questions a little bit. But first, I want to offer you a compliment courtesy of Tom, who asked earlier about the public image and the competition over those who are trying to influence the public. Thomas, are you with us?
Yes.
Thomas, I've made you audible. I've seen your comment. Would you like to speak openly with Samia and Brenda?
Sure. I don't wish to. I'm getting a lot just by listening to the questions of others, of course, but it's fascinating. The one question I would raise, which is of keen interest to me, responding to one of the comments earlier, was that I was very pleased to see that there's a dimension of tectonic leadership you're exploring between generations, intergenerational tensions. I happen to be one of the listeners on the air who is probably one of the senior persons listening. I'm 64, and I find it's very exciting to see the intergenerational tensions addressed within this particular new, fresh, and exciting methodology for addressing conflict, because I have only, a numerical number of years statistically to live, and I've just begun in some ways to address issues which will never be resolved in my lifetime, but which I'll be dependent upon other people younger than I, my adult children, people like you, to address, and yet I feel I have contributions to make to the process. So it's very exciting.
Thank you so much, Thomas.
Thank you, and we're closer to your age, by the way.
Yeah, we're on the senior side.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you,
You're
Thomas.
absolutely right. We shouldn't ignore that. You're absolutely right. Thank you for that comment. It's not only about us, it's about for future generations to come.
Yes, it truly, the work that I am doing, and it's really a thinking work. I have not been much of an activist over my lifetime, but I believe that the issues that are arising now across the globe in so many fronts are going to amplify and become more and more painful for humanity, and we need to think in terms of what do we want in 200 years or 300 years, and then the question always becomes, what share do I have in that, and what is that about for me? Why should I even hold such a hope? And I think that persons, particularly from, at least my view, from faith traditions which have thousands of years of history and teachings and reservoirs of wisdom in them, might grasp that matter of identifying a portion of our own individual being with all of other human beings. And we can do that relationally with other persons who we live with now, and we can also do that relationally with people who are yet to be born. And so I'm very hopeful, and same time feeling a sense of urgency about what you're doing, and I hope I'll find some ways to be supportive of it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas.
Yeah, I'll be quiet now. I've taken up enough airtime.
You'll be muted, so feel free to make as much noise as you like. Thank you. So a couple more questions. One is going to be a practical question, and then I have a more serious question. Some of the participants are interested to know, Ellie Anders just submitted, how do we attend a conference? How can they become involved and do the process?
Send us an email. Let us know. Our focus is really with universities because our time is somewhat limited. But if it's with a university, we're happy to set up a keynote speech and then continue the process with a workshop. But our real focus, what we think is really going to make the difference, is being able to, with a university campus, create workshop and the entrepreneurial forum. So that's where our goal is.
So the information will be on the website,
okay.
and we hope to be able to promote something pretty soon.
Here in the metropolitan Detroit area, with the American Jewish Committee, we will be doing a program with young leaders across the Jewish-Muslim divide that'll be taking place at the end of this year, the beginning of 2014. It just depends on the community and what people wish to do. But our focus is really engaging that graduate level student at the university.
Well, I want to just ask something that is going to invite tension into the conversation, so we can put the method to the test here. One of our participants emailed me with this comment. It seems that one thing that is essential for dialogue to happen is the luxuries of a safe environment and the basics of existence. If I can't engage the other person without risking my life, or if I don't have enough food to take the time to talk with the other side, then I'm too concerned with survival to move the process forward. So I'd like to ask, I'll turn that into a question. When you say that this is not for everybody, would that exclude people who are actually living in war zone environments?
No, not really.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, because the question is a very valid one.
Yes.
Okay, because people who live in a scarce environment, who are, and a lot of these people are recruited, by the way, by organizations. So I want to point something out that's really important. those surges of radicalism that were you know, it's not only to Muslim, it's not only pertinent to Muslim people. It's not like Muslims were born with an appetite to kill. It's radicalization comes in all forms, is being present in many societies. And poverty, scarcity does create that kind of violence, because poverty is a form of violence within and in itself. And people find room, need their place for identity, their place of conflict. That being said, this is why educational institutions are very important. This is why I think that an entrepreneurial forum could be a very good catalyst to transform conflict. As a judge for the MIT Entrepreneur Competition, we have people from Palestine, people from Sudan, for the Arab world, right? People from Egypt, from all walks of life, people with simple ideas. All they need, and today a lot of people have access to internet, even in the poorest neighborhood, and even illiteracy. So things are changing because of social media. And we need to grab, this is where the young people really can bridge the gap for us, the seniors. And using social media is what caused the eruption of what you see in all these places of conflict today and revolutions. And social media is going to transform even how we look at conflict. It has transformed how we look at conflict. And we need to leverage it to transform conflict and transform areas of conflict. So don't lose hope. The question is valid, but always remember, there is, I mean, in the Arab Entrepreneur Competition is amazing. I'm a judge, and I received dozens and dozens of business plans for every competition. And it's amazing where they come from. And you know, they're coming from regions of the world that have barely electricity. But people with small ideas want to just do something. So you could create that environment. It's a matter of how you create that environment. And it requires resources, of course. Hope I answered that question.
And no matter where you come from, I will vouch for the fact that Brenda and Samia, you are two of the most inspiring advocates I've ever met. And I want to really profoundly and sincerely thank you for sharing.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity. We really appreciate it. We're looking to make a difference, and thank you for getting our message out there today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Molly, and thank you for all the audience and all the questions. They're very good.
Oh, very good. Well, I want to encourage the questions to keep coming. I want to encourage all to be connected to you and to me. My email address, molly@parliamentofreligions.org, is seemingly buzzing 24 hours a day, and I'm pretty responsive. So I would encourage you to connect with me, especially to find out more about what we're doing with Face Against Hate, and also invite you to our next webinar. It's going to be September 30th, and it touches on the point, Samia, you were just making about the intranet. It's a resource. We're being co-sponsored with the Interfaith Center of New York to share their newest sponsored website, Exodus Conversations, which fosters common ground around Abrahamic themes, around the story of Exodus. So there will be some theological discussion, followed with tutorials on using the resource. And we're going to showcase it as an example of how interfaith networks are strengthened online. That's something I'm very excited about and kind of obsessed with. And so that's going to be September 30th. You'll be receiving an invitation soon. I want to thank everyone again for their time. To let you all know, I will be sharing the video of today's presentation on YouTube. I'll be following up with you to share that link so you can connect your networks and show them what we discussed today. And finally, I just want to say peace be with all of you. Tell me how it's going to go. Keep us connected, and wish you all a great day. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you.